You know what almost no one truly admits out loud, something that can deeply affect your peace and connection as you navigate these valuable years of life. It's the hidden, often silent and incredibly subtle forms of aggression that sometimes surface not from men, but shockingly, from women toward other women. This isn't about shouting matches or physical confrontations. It's a silent campaign that flies under the radar, yet possesses a profound power to chip away at your confidence, unravel treasured friendships, and even disrupt your sense of belonging, leaving you feeling utterly bewildered and alone. Imagine finally understanding those uncomfortable moments, those subtle shifts in energy that have puzzled you for years. What if you're not too sensitive, but simply detecting something hidden, something almost no one talks about openly? What if unlocking this secret could transform your peace of mind and the quality of your most important friendships, allowing you to move forward with wisdom and confidence rather than continuing to be blindsided? We're talking about those quiet digs, the invisible competitions that creep into our interactions, the quiet ways women can unintentionally or sometimes intentionally punish each other without ever raising their voices. Have you ever experienced this unsettling dynamic? Perhaps feeling a sting in your gut but not being able to pinpoint why? For those who grew up navigating a childhood with complex experiences or trauma, this kind of silent aggression can feel especially confusing and unsettling. You might have learned early on to scan your surroundings for danger, to keenly pick up on even the tiniest cues about who felt safe and who did not. So, when another woman directs this type of veiled hostility your way, you absolutely feel it deep within your nervous system, a sinking feeling in your stomach, even if no one else seems to notice. This often leads to a troubling cycle where you start questioning yourself, wondering if you did something wrong or if you're overreacting. And that's precisely what gives this subtle aggression its immense power. My goal here is to help us clearly understand these hidden dynamics, because if you don't see them for what they truly are, you might continue to be blindsided, dismissing your feelings as being crazy or too sensitive. Sound familiar? But once you can clearly identify these patterns, you gain the powerful ability to recognize them, name them, and make conscious choices that protect your sanity and well-being. So, let's start with a foundational truth. Silent aggression is just as real as any other form of hostility. Just because someone doesn't yell, throw things, or overtly confront you, doesn't mean their actions aren't intended to cause harm or diminish you. Think about those times you might have received the cold shoulder, a deliberate exclusion without words, or perhaps that smile that only reaches the mouth, never quite touching the eyes, betraying a lack of genuine warmth. And what about those little jokes where someone delivers a thinly veiled put-down, then dismisses your discomfort with, "Oh, come on, can't you take a joke?" when it's clearly an attempt to subtly diminish you? Consider the friend who seems completely disinterested in your good news, but then enthusiastically celebrates someone else's accomplishments. Or notice how the entire energy of a group of women can suddenly shift, wordlessly communicating that you are excluded without a single explicit remark. All of these seemingly small instances are forms of aggression. They are not mere accidents or misunderstandings. Each is a deliberate choice. Now, why do these complex dynamics so often unfold between women? Part of the explanation lies in deeply ingrained cultural patterns. For centuries, across countless societies, women have often been subtly and sometimes overtly taught not to express open anger or overt competition. We were expected to be polite, agreeable, nurturing, and above all, nice. So, what happens when a real human being experiences natural emotions like envy, frustration, competition, or even genuine rage, but feels they are not permitted to express these feelings directly? That emotional energy doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it often goes underground, manifesting sideways through behaviors like gossip, backhanded compliments, deliberate exclusion, or those countless subtle undermining gestures that clearly communicate your unspoken position within a group. This unexpressed energy becomes a force that can inadvertently harm. The other significant part of this, particularly if you've grown up with any form of trauma, is how easily silent aggression can become normalized within your own experience. If you witnessed or experienced this behavior from your mother, sisters, or early friends, you might have unconsciously internalized it. You could have learned that this is simply how women are in relationships. You might even find yourself unconsciously engaging in these subtle behaviors yourself, without even realizing it, because they feel familiar and, in a twisted way, normal to you. This happens when your inherent capacity to connect and feel genuinely good within relationships has been injured over time. If you suspect that past harms from your childhood may have created this vulnerability in you, you might find it incredibly helpful to explore some common signs. I have a readily available list that highlights how childhood trauma can affect your ability to connect with others. If you're curious to see if you recognize some of these shared experiences in yourself, you can download it. I'll provide a link conveniently placed in the very first line of the description below this video, and it's completely free to access. Let's unpack some of the most common ways this silent aggression makes itself known. Those little things you notice, the subtle actions you often feel pressured to simply let slide. The kind of behaviors that, if you dared to point them out, would instantly brand you as too sensitive or paranoid. But here's the crucial part. When you clearly see these behaviors for what they truly are, it doesn't even matter whether you decide to confront the person or tell others about it. The most important, truly liberating step is that you stop doubting yourself and your perceptions. First, there's what I call the invisible freeze out. You walk into a group that you believed you belonged to, and suddenly the warmth just drains from the room. No one says anything directly hostile. Instead, their glances just glide past you. Their voices might lower, or a conversation abruptly stops as you approach. They make you feel like an undeniable outsider without uttering a single accusatory word. Second, watch for the gentle undercut. You've just shared an exciting idea or a personal story, and another woman immediately jumps in with a seemingly minor correction or a slightly different anecdote. It might be about some tiny, inconsequential detail, but it subtly shifts the focus away from what you were trying to share, effectively knocking you down a peg or two. Next up, they vanish when you win. You share genuinely good news, an accomplishment, a milestone, something you're proud of, and your friend's reaction goes completely flat. There are no congratulations, no genuine interest, just an echoing silence that leaves your achievement feeling invisible, perhaps even making you feel a bit embarrassed for having shared it at all. Then there's concern shaming, which isn't the best term, but it describes when someone criticizes you under the guise of deep caring. They might say, "I'm only telling you this because I'm worried you're overdoing it," or "I just don't want people to think you're trying too hard." While it sounds protective on the surface, its underlying intent is often to shrink you, to make you play smaller. A variation of this is reputation seeding, where they subtly damage your standing with others. Your friend might worry aloud to other people. "Doesn't Anna seem really stressed lately? I'm not sure she's handling things very well." On the surface, there's no hostility, but it cleverly plants seeds of doubt about you in the minds of others. The fifth pattern is selective memory. Your friend forgets to mention your name when credit is being distributed, or leaves you out of a story where you clearly played a significant role. If this happens just once, it might genuinely be an oversight. But when it becomes a recurring pattern, which it frequently does when people harbor silent hostility, it clearly functions as a deliberate act of erasing your contributions or your presence. I remember feeling like Cinderella in a past job where everyone else went to an important conference despite my expertise, and I was left behind to handle mundane tasks. I didn't speak up then, but I certainly wouldn't participate in that dynamic now. Similarly, number 6 is the backhanded compliment. This is praise that delivers a subtle cut as it lands. You might hear, "Oh, that actually looks good on you," or "You're surprisingly good at that." It's framed as support, but it carries a clear, unspoken reminder that they had very low expectations of you to begin with. Then come the nonverbal jabs. These are the raised eyebrow, the subtle smirk, or the exaggerated sigh. There's nothing concrete you can pinpoint or openly confront, just a look or a gesture that unmistakably communicates what your friend is thinking or feeling, all while offering them perfect deniability. Next, we have strategic exclusion. Plans are made, invitations are extended, but somehow you are the one consistently left off the list. Later, when confronted, the excuse is always, "Oh, it was just an oversight." While a single instance might be believable, a pattern of such oversights is anything but accidental. The ninth common pattern is the one-up. You share something personal, vulnerable, or exciting, and your friend immediately shifts the conversation to her own bigger, better, or more impressive version of the same experience. This isn't open hostility, but it has a very distinct way of flattening your joy and diminishing your experience. 10th is what I call the silent vote. Important decisions regarding a group or activity happen when you're simply not in the room. Your friend doesn't actively argue against you, but she might quietly neglect to include you in a group text, or discreetly back those who are trying to ease you out of the group. And finally, number 11 is selective storytelling. Your friend might repeat something you said, but subtly trim or twist the details just enough to make you look foolish, wrong, unkind, or simply unworthy of being included anymore. She bends the truth just enough that it becomes incredibly difficult to defend yourself against it without seeming overly sensitive or dramatic. All of these subtle forms of aggression take a heavy psychological toll. I know this personally, as I've experienced them more than once in various parts of my life. While a single instance might be shrugged off, when it happens repeatedly, it begins to deeply erode your sense of self-worth and keeps you perpetually on edge. If you already grapple with emotional dysregulation, this particular kind of stress can send you into overdrive, leading to obsessive thoughts, looping spirals of self-blame, and even physical symptoms. The most damaging aspect of it all is precisely its hidden, silent nature. Because it's so veiled, you can't get clarity, you can't openly resolve it. This is exactly how it functions, trapping you in a ceaseless loop of self-questioning, which creates the perfect environment for old trauma triggers to resurface and flourish. So, how do we effectively counter this silent aggression? You simply cannot stop other people from choosing to engage in these behaviors. But what you can do, with incredible power, is stop letting these actions work their corrosive magic on you. The entire power of silent aggression stems from your own silence, from your self-doubt, from swallowing your feelings down, and from letting it slide. Here's what you can choose to do instead. First, trust what you notice. If you feel that familiar sting in your gut, that subtle, uncomfortable shift in energy, do not, under any circumstances, gaslight yourself. You don't need to prove your feelings to anyone else. You simply need to trust that you felt what you felt. Second, stop trying to win them over. When you feel excluded or subtly put down, a common, almost automatic trauma reflex is to try harder, to please, to smooth things over, or to desperately try to earn back their approval. But this only keeps you trapped in the cycle. You absolutely do not owe that to anyone. Third, don't explain yourself. Silent aggression often baits you into feeling compelled to defend your actions or character. And, as you know, if you explain yourself too much, you can inadvertently appear guilty. Refuse the bait. Hold your ground, either with dignified silence or by calmly and purposefully moving the conversation forward. You can also stand up without creating a fight. If you choose to respond, keep your words concise, neutral, and devoid of drama. For instance, in response to a backhanded compliment, you could simply say, well, that's an interesting way to put it, and then say nothing further. Or if someone engages in concern shaming, a calm, "Thanks for your concern, I've got it handled," is often all that's needed, period. You are not arguing, you are not defending. You are simply demonstrating that you will not be diminished. Additionally, you can name it lightly when necessary. Sometimes, simply putting words to the behavior strips away its power. If someone leaves you out, you might gently say, "Oh, I must have missed that invitation." If your contribution is forgotten, a calm, "Right, I was part of that too," spoken without drama, firmly marks the truth. Most importantly, you get to decide who belongs in your inner circle. You do not need everyone to like you. People who thrive on silent aggression are simply not your people, and they are not healthy to have in your life anyway. So, make the conscious choice to step back, create emotional space, and purposefully invest your energy into relationships where genuine respect is the absolute baseline. I also strongly recommend that you refuse to give it back. The fastest, most powerful way to break this draining cycle of hostility is to simply stop playing the same game yourself. Be mindful and notice when you feel tempted to undercut, exclude, or shame another person. Call yourself out in that moment and consciously choose honesty, generosity, and respect instead. The truth is, silent aggression among women thrives precisely on secrecy. Because no one talks about it openly, everyone who experiences it often feels isolated and alone, believing they are the only ones. Yet nearly every woman I know has encountered it at some point in her life. The fundamental difference lies in whether you allow these experiences to define your relationships or whether you learn to accurately spot it, courageously name it, and confidently walk away from its influence. This process becomes significantly easier when your own trauma is actively healing. Continuing to allow people who subtly hurt you in these ways into your life can often be a symptom of unresolved trauma. I truly want you to experience what it feels like when you no longer engage in this pattern. It is one of the clearest signs of deep healing. In fact, I'd like to share my most popular free download with you, where I've listed more than a dozen incredibly helpful signs that indicate your trauma is truly healing. These insights are wonderful to hold in your mind. Some you may have already achieved, while others can become guiding stars on your personal vision board. This guide will truly point you in a wonderfully positive direction across many facets of your life. You'll find a link to this free download in the second line of the description section directly below this video. So, if you've been blindsided by someone's subtle aggression, please stop blaming yourself. Stop twisting yourself into knots trying to figure out what you might have done wrong. The truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You were simply dealing with someone who was unable or unwilling to be direct about their own hostility, so they chose a silent, indirect way to express it. And if you have ever, in moments of unawareness, been the one who engaged in these behaviors, please forgive yourself. But also, commit to stopping. Engaging in these tactics doesn't make you powerful. It doesn't grant you vengeance. It doesn't make you safe. Ultimately, it only makes you small. True power lies in honesty, in generosity of spirit, and in having the courage to express what you genuinely feel without intentionally hurting others, especially those who might already be marginalized or in the shadows. This is the profound work of growing beyond the lingering effects of childhood trauma. Healing brings an incredible clarity. It helps you see precisely what is truly happening in your interactions. You begin to unequivocally refuse to normalize toxic patterns, and you consciously choose relationships that genuinely lift you up, rather than subtly tearing you down. Silent aggression is common, yes, but it is not inevitable. It does not have to be your fate. And once you truly see it for what it is, you no longer have to live under its oppressive shadow. The real life-altering choice we all face is this: we can either continue to compete and subtly tear each other down, or we can choose to build genuine friendships and lasting respect. Competition and covert aggression might offer a fleeting sense of power in the moment, but they always leave you feeling uneasy, smaller, more isolated, and perpetually suspicious of other people. Genuine friendship and deep respect don't erase the natural feelings of envy or occasional conflict, but they equip us with honorable ways to deal with those emotions, honestly, without cruelty, without secrecy, and without punishment. That is the choice that changes absolutely everything. It's not about pretending aggression isn't there, or that it doesn't exist within us sometimes, but rather consciously refusing to live by its destructive rules. And when you make that powerful choice, you stop being trapped in the suffocating web of silent hostility, which finally frees up that beautiful light within you, allowing it to shine brighter and carry you toward the happy, steady, connected life you so truly deserve.